Dana, thank you. The country's road to financial recovery has been a bumpy one. Time and again, positive signals are weighed down by negative numbers. That's made it hard for Americans to gain confidence, traction in the comeback, particularly with the value of their homes literally in the dumps. Let's talk to the CNN Money team. And there's one of the key team members right there, Christine Romans in New York. And here in Atlanta, we love having him on the program, housing expert John Adams. We'll talk to John in just a second. But Christine, let me start with you. If the collapse in housing and all the predatory, greed-driven practices that led to the collapse, and then you think about the jobs that went away with the collapse, if the collapse has us in this malaise, can we break out of it if housing doesn't come back and come back soon?
Well, that's a good question, Tony. The mortgage insurance people, the PMI group, they say the last 7 recessions haven't ended without a recovery in the housing market, property sales and home sales. And you know, Hugh Johnson, another key economist, he also tells us, look, whenever you get out of you really have a solid recovery when consumers start to spend and the housing market improves. One of those things or the other. And the numbers this week have not been really that great for the housing market. New home sales down 33%. We've never seen a number that low. New home, think of that. People buying new homes down 33%. 7.3 million people are delinquent in their loans. I mean, another record. 7.3 million people are late in their loans. And look at what's happened to the price of your biggest asset since the peak in 2006. The median price of a home in this country is down $65,000 since the peak. I mean, that's real money that people are definitely feeling. So we still, after a spring awakening, end of April, the first-time homebuyer tax credit expired, right? What happened in May?
Yeah.
It just kind of flopped in May, and now we're just all wondering, is it going to get itself up? Can the housing market walk on its own 2 legs without the government and government money? And there are some real concerns about that, Tony.
John, there's a proposition here. All of the stakeholders in the housing sector, I'm talking mortgage brokers, I'm talking about loan servicers, I'm talking about banks, they're not on the same page. They're not on the same page. They are not working with a single-minded focus to get this sector healthy again. They're not, mortgage modifications are slow.
There's no motivation for them to do so.
Thank you.
And the key here is Christine is exactly right. People don't buy houses when they're worried about their jobs, and they're worried about their jobs because the economy's not going well, and one thing feeds another, and you got all kind of problems. I am convinced that the economists are right. Real estate led us into this recession. It's going to have to lead us out. It has the last 7 times in a row. And the real estate sales we're seeing are threatening to undermine the recovery that we now have.
How do we get out of this? What has to happen in addition to all of the stakeholders sitting in a room together and saying, you know what, it's in our best interest here, ultimately, to have a healthy sector here?
Well, they're not so concerned about the sector as they are their own pocketbooks. The president needs to step up and exercise leadership and say 4 things we're going to do straight from the White House. Number 1, no more foreclosures in the United States of America unless there's mandatory mediation, meaningful mediation between the borrower and the lender. A lot of these could be worked out. Number 2, people want to stay in the house. Number 2, eliminate the due on sale clause. That is a federal mandate that was passed under Garn St. Germain in 1982. It could be wiped out with the stroke of a pen. Number 3, I want to eliminate tax on the subsequent resale of bank-owned homes. This would solve this huge shadow inventory of houses that are sitting there decaying in our neighborhoods and dragging down home prices. Investors like me would rush to buy them. And then number 4, and this is broader than real estate, a 6-month federal tax holiday.
Wow. Christine, any thoughts before we wrap up this segment? Because I know I've got you coming back in just a couple of minutes.
Jobs. Jobs is the most important part of the whole thing. If you have 9.7% unemployment and 46% of the people who are unemployed for 6 months or longer, you can have the most affordable housing market in the world, but you can't buy a house because you can't afford it. You got to have jobs coming back and people feel better about making that big investment again.
You need a new sector. I know we don't want bubbles again, but I sent you a note yesterday, Christine. We've got to get a new sector, and I don't know what it is to fuel some job growth. And
it's called real estate, Tony. You cut taxes and we'll create jobs.
John, good to see you. Christine will be back in just a couple of minutes here. And at that time, she's going to talk about a fraud that you just can't believe. I'm going to leave it there. We're back in a moment. You're in the CNN Newsroom.